Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stacy. This is going to be my January wrap up. I've got some different things that I want to talk about. I've got some books, I've got some TV shows, movies, audio things that I'm going to add in for this month just to make it a little spicy. The first book that I finished in January was The Rapture by Tim Lahey and Jerry B. Jenkins. This was book 3 in the prequel series to the Left Behind books. Anyway, I started reading this series in like September, October-ish, and then I just finished this one the very beginning of January, and I loved it. I liked the whole prequel series. Each book kind of has a different flavor. The first book was about the parents of Nikolai Carpathia, who later becomes the Antichrist. It's their story and how they got married and had a baby and what he was like as a toddler and as a kid. It also followed Rayford's story from when he was a kid also, and when he went to college and he met his wife. Book 2 was their later years, like their 20s, and it was kind of going parallel between Rayford and Nikolai, but also Buck, the journalist. And so you get really good background information of who they were as people and what kind of lives they were living before the rapture happened. And then book 3 is The Rapture. This was fascinating. This actually takes you to heaven. There are scenes in this book that are set in heaven where, some of the people that you had been following from the first 2 books get taken, and what they're experiencing in heaven. It was so beautiful. I was just sobbing through the end of this book. Once those scenes happened, I was so emotionally invested and I was a hot mess. I thought it was very well done, and I thought it was biblically sound. I'm not an expert, but from my limited opinion, it seemed biblically sound. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars because of the emotional impact that it had on me. This one was my favorite of the prequels. And I would definitely say that if you want to read the Left Behind books, or if you've already read them, I would definitely recommend reading the prequels because I honestly think they're better written and you get such a better backstory and you get more emotionally attached to the characters. After that, I jumped into the first Left Behind book. I've been planning on rereading these for a long time, but I wanted to get the prequels done before I got into these. I read the first, I want to say 5 or 6 books when they first came out, like in the 90s. But at that time, I wasn't a Christian and I wasn't reading them from a Christian perspective. They were just the book to read at that time. They were super popular when they were coming out. I remember liking these books a lot, mainly because they were so action-packed. I'm really drawn to things that are very fast-paced. It helps keep my attention. But anyway, I wanted to reread them now as a Christian and see what I thought of them now. So yeah, I read this one. I gave it 4 stars. I've ended up going down this pretty deep rabbit hole of all the arguments. There's a lot of people that love this book and love the theology of it. And then there's a lot of people who hate it and say it's all garbage. And that was a lot of research that I ended up doing. It definitely made me ask a lot of questions and, wanted to dig in deeper. But for what it is, again, I found this to be very fast-paced, very action-packed. You get connected to the characters, even though I feel like they don't get described very well in this book. You kind of just jump right into the action. And so you might not feel that connected to the characters if you hadn't read the prequels. But I did really like this book, and I would like to continue on. I have I have 4 of them, and these are the originals that I had from the 90s. I actually kept them all these years, so I'm excited to get into those and continue on with the series. Oh, I forgot to mention that these books actually went for the prompt for Read in the New Year. Holly and Oshina's readathon that they did the first week of January. These fit the prompt for read a book set in a series. So there's 2 for that one. Another one that I read for the Read in the New Year readathon was our Christian book club pick for the month, which was Set the Stars Alike by Dykes. and that fit the prompt for water on the cover. This one was a dual timeline. I am learning that I really do prefer historical timelines, historical stories. I'm really not one for modern settings, except when it comes to dystopian or stories of survival. So that's why these books work for me. But if it's just a regular, like kind of ordinary life kind of story that is set in modern times, I don't normally enjoy those kinds of stories. But I did really like the historical parts of this book. I thought those were really interesting, and I thought the faith was really good in them. I really liked the main guy character from the historical setting. His whole storyline was really about sacrifice for his friends, like sacrificing his life for a friend, and I thought that was really beautiful how that was done. So I was a big fan of him and his storyline. The writing also was really like flowery, poetic, and I struggled with the writing style a lot. It was a very slow read for me, and I found myself not really wanting to pick it up because I just was kind of trudging through it. Although the writing was beautiful, I can recognize it as very beautiful writing. It just isn't writing that's easy for me to read, I guess. Oh, that book also fit the prompt for a new to you author because I've never read anything by Amanda Dykes, so got 2 prompts with that one. And it would work for read a book that you did not pay for because I borrowed that from the library. Okay, next book I want to talk about, it's kind of out of my normal reading zone, but I loved it. And that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I read The Martian when that came out years ago, and I loved that book too, but I actually like Project Hail Mary even more than The Martian. And it's kind of surprising that I like it so much because it's very, very heavy on sci-fi and science and stuff like that. And I am not a very sciencey person, but the main character of this book is a science school teacher. And the way that he explains all of the science was so interesting to me. And I feel like I was understanding what he was saying, even though I probably shouldn't be understanding what he was saying. He just had a really good way of teaching it that made me interested in it, and that's a sign of a great teacher right there and a sign of a great book if it holds my attention the way it did. Also, the main character gets a best friend in this book, and I don't want to say who the best friend is because I don't want to give any spoilers away if you haven't read it, but the best friend and his relationship is one of the best things I've read in a very long time. It's one of my favorite friendships. I just thought it was so fun and so sweet and so loving. Also, if you have read The Martian and you didn't really like it because it's kind of heavy with language, this book was not. I was paying attention to the language for this book in case anybody who watches my channel might be interested in it. And I picked up on 2 times that cuss words were used, and they were used at times when something majorly crazy was happening, like someone would blurt out the word, kind of fit in with the scene. They weren't just random, cussing. So yeah, I just wanted to let you all know that. This book was very funny, very sweet. It made me learn a whole lot of stuff that I never thought I would be interested in, and I found it completely interesting. So yeah, I gave this book 5 stars. Next one I'm going to talk about is The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz. This is another Sherlock Holmes novel. I've been reading a ton of this stuff lately. Sherlock Holmes written by other people besides Arthur Conan Doyle, and for the most part I have loved all of the Sherlock stories that I have read, and this one was iffy for me. This one, the writing was outstanding. The way Anthony Horowitz wrote Sherlock and Watson, I think was perfect. I think he did a really great job with those characters. And for the most part, I really enjoyed the story and the mystery that was going on. But then once we got to about 80% of this book, you find out what the House of Silk is. The mystery is surrounding the House of Silk. And when you find out what this is, it's awful. It was way beyond what I was expecting. It was way beyond what I would imagine for a Sherlock Holmes stories. I feel like Sherlock Holmes is pretty tame in the cases that he works on. A lot of his cases have to do with like theft. And so this was really shocking and horrific and difficult to read. It made me really upset. I had a hard time stomaching it, but I was already at the 80% mark. So I did finish the book, but had I known what that last 20% would entail, I don't think I would have picked this up. I think I would have just skipped this book. I do have the book that comes after this. It's called Moriarty. And I really did like how Moriarty was done in this book too. You do get like a little taste of him. And I am interested in reading the book about Moriarty because he is one of my favorite villains. But I don't know if it is going to be too much. So if any of you have read that other book, Moriarty by Anthony Horowitz, let me know if you think it's okay or not. If you've read this, then you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's all I've got for this one. Oh, also, this one goes for the Around the World in 80 Days readathon. I will leave all the information for the readathon down below because there's 3 hosts for it, and if you haven't heard of it, you definitely should because it's a really fun readathon. Anyway, this goes for the country of England, so I can cross that one off my list. All right, this next book also goes for the Around the World in 80 Days readathon, and this is for the country of France. This is a book that I've had on my shelf for years, probably at least 10 years. It is the second Empress from Michelle Moran. This is about the Austrian princess that Napoleon marries after his first wife can't give him children, like she is unable to get pregnant by him. And so he divorces his first wife, Josephine, and he marries this princess. I thought the book would be really about her, like her story, and it was. Her story was in here, but I'd say half of this book is about Napoleon's sister, Paulina, and I wasn't expecting that. And I gotta say, his sister, Paulina, was wild. And a lot of the things that she got up to in court and was known for, like if you ever look into the history of Napoleon and his family, his siblings, you would see it pop up online what she was well known for. She had some diseases, I'll say that. She got some diseases from, doing things that she shouldn't be doing. I really didn't enjoy the parts about her. I didn't enjoy her as a person or reading about her because she was such a terrible person. I'm not just saying she was wild, she was also a very bad person. Because half the book was about her, I was disappointed with that fact. I did learn a lot about Napoleon and about his court and crazy stupid things that he did. He did a lot of really bad things too. I didn't know much about Napoleon going into this, so I do appreciate learning as much as I did. And a lot of this book was based off of actual letters that were written between all of these people. And the letters were put into the book, so I really like that. So anyway, this book takes care of the French prompt. The last book I want to talk about was The Land Beneath Us by Sara Sundin. That one I don't have anymore. I borrowed it from the library and I had to return it already. That one apparently is the 3rd book in a trilogy. I think it was called the Normandy trilogy, something like that. And I didn't realize that when I picked it up, that it was the 3rd book. I did kind of pick up on that as I got closer to the end because the main character kept talking about his 2 brothers, and the way that the brothers were talked about, I started wondering, like, wait a minute, are there other books in this series and the brothers will be the main characters of those books? And yes, that is exactly how the books are. This is my first Sara Sundin book, and it definitely will not be my last. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It was beautiful. It was set in the 1940s, and it takes place mainly on the Army Rangers base in Tennessee, and there's a young woman, I think she was 19, and she was an orphan, and she arrives at the base because she is going to be a librarian at the base, and she gets assaulted And there are trigger warnings for this. I don't really want to say what they are because I don't want to give spoilers away. But if you have any issues at all with women being assaulted, then you might want to skip this one. But because of the assault, she gets put into a horrible position, and the main guy character ends up marrying her to take care of her. And while he is away fighting, they end up sending each other all of these letters, and they get to really know each other. And their love story is so beautiful. It had me crying. And it wasn't just the love story, it was the faith story too. Her faith was outstanding, especially coming from the background that she did. She had so much strength in her, and she was always going to God and talking about how God helps her. And that really helped the guy build on his relationship with God. And he had some demons that he was fighting, and through the process of him being away and writing these letters with her, he worked out so much between him and God. This book was just beautiful, and I highly recommend it. Okay, and a few other things that I want to quickly mention because I loved them so much. I ended up watching the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society movie. I haven't read the book. I want to read the book, but I just watched the movie mainly because of the fashion. I saw it come up on the TV, and I was like, wow, I really love that fashion and what, the people were wearing. So let me just watch this to get a better idea of, fashion at that time. And as I was watching it, man, I fell in love with this story. It was a beautiful story. Some parts of it were incredibly sad, but it was also very encouraging and inspiring, and it was just a lovely story. So if you haven't seen it yet, and if you like historical drama type stuff, I would definitely check that out. And also, if you have read the book and seen the movie, let me know if they're similar or if they're completely different. Next thing I want to mention is a TV show called Dr. Thorne, and this is not new. It's been out for years, but I just came across it. But it's done by the same guy who does Downton Abbey, and I want to say it's a Victorian period drama. There was only 4 or 5 episodes to this, so it was very short. You could binge it all in one night. But again, the costumes that these people wore, the fashion was amazing. Also, if you are a fan of Paul Dark, the main girl in Paul Dark, Demelza, the guy who plays Demelza's brother, the really cute kid with the dark hair, can't remember his name, he is in Dr. Thorne, and he plays such a cute, sweet character. I loved him. But if you like Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, all that kind of stuff, you have got to watch Dr. Thorne. It was just a very clean, sweet, entertaining, visually nice thing to watch. And the last thing I wanted to mention is an audio Bible. I have been really struggling with finishing up reading my Bible from last year. I'm down to like 5 books left in it, and I am just really, really struggling with reading it. And so I started listening to some of it on audio, and I've been switching around to different versions to find one that I really liked. And in that process, I discovered that David Suchet, he's the guy who plays Perot in the TV show, he narrates the entire Bible. You can get all of the books separately on YouTube for free, but I went ahead and got the entire thing Audible, and his voice and his narration is like butter. It is the most perfect narrating voice I think I've ever heard. And it's really funny too, because I have watched him play Perot in so many episodes, so when I see his face, I think of his Belgian accent, but he's actually British, and he has a very formal British accent, and so it's kind of wild to see Perot talking with a British accent, if you know what I mean, because I did watch some of his readings on YouTube before I got it on Audible. But it's absolutely amazing. If you are looking for an audio version of the Bible, I would definitely recommend checking it out and seeing what you think. So there we go. Those are all the books and shows and things that I consumed in January. If you've read these books or watched these shows or listened to David Suchet read the Bible, let me know that down below and your thoughts on that. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.